maybe like as people are still joining in, I think we had mentioned this before. We create the content in the course of the week. And to be honest, most of the content we do for the class, we don't create till typically 18 hours before we actually teach. And I don't mean that as a last minute thing. It's we try to take as much of what's happening for us in the course of a week and the different things that influence kind of how we're thinking, as real time as possible. In the last week since we taught leadership in practice, the volume of stuff coming at us is just mind-boggling.
Our heads are, my head.
But I mean, like in so many different directions, it's kind of exciting in its own way too. Like the mental stimulation out of control. So I'll just give you some examples of pockets. Last week at the end of day Thursday, so this was after leadership in practice, we spent quite a bit of time with this guy named Shiv Khemka. Shiv Khemka is a fascinating individual that we've gotten to know over the years. He's the family is one of the wealthiest families in India. So, I mean, there's some pretty well-to-do billionaires in India. The point where his mother sat on the lap of Gandhi, and like he can track his lineage back 190 something. I mean, I'm like, I can go 3 maybe. He can go 190 something as a book on it. And so, I mean, very, very big name family in different areas, but and he's doing tremendous work. I mean, he has had a life mission. They have this foundation, which is their family money going towards trying to make the world better. It's like a $4 billion plus foundation, $4 billion plus foundation. And they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff where they start sponsoring like 6 million kids in schools across like 10 countries. And they almost end up adopting them once they get to around 18, around 300 of them, and putting them to like Ivy League schools, the best schools in the world. And the goal is to build what they call the little army of Gandhis. They believe that by having even 3, 4, or 5 Gandhi-like individuals' leadership, you can fix the world's problems, even with a group that concentrated. 1 Gandhi, you get 3, like the difference is just staggering. So anyway, spent a lot of time with Shiv over the years. We've done a lot of work, even flying to India, helping his group train these individuals, a lot of fun stories there. But he was sharing with us kind of what he did during COVID. I haven't seen him in person, actually. We talked to him on Zoom, but since COVID. And what we find most fascinating and what we're trying to do even with this class is give and share with you as much as possible in real time some of the coolest things we have access to. It's very privileged stuff. And we meet people who go to places in extreme that most of us in life will never go to. And in this case, I know in today's day and age, a lot of people talk about meditation. Some of you may have tried it. Some of you may regularly practice it. Some of you may, just kind of read about it. Shiv is pushing the limits of meditation. He now meditates 2 hours a day since COVID began, every Sunday. So this is 18 months now.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak a word.
On Sundays.
Every Sunday from Saturday at midnight to Sunday midnight, 24 hours. This notion, and then what he did was, he has access to crazy stuff, but the original, it's in Sanskrit. I think somewhere maybe 2,000 years old. There's a guy, I forget the guy's name now, but who wrote basically the manual of how to meditate. Mm-hmm. And it's like 195 lines. And Shiv's point of view is this manuscript. It's been translated many, many times, but they're all translated incorrectly in his point of view. The Westerners who translated it didn't understand the cultural aspects of it. And then the yogis who translated it didn't understand English. It was written in poor English. So Shiv literally spent the last 18 months translating this thing. 195 lines of basically the process of how to get to mental calm working solo. And he was walking us through, it's like 8 levels. Within each level, there's 5. It's insane.
I have 13 pages of notes. He was here explaining, but we were only on level 1, part 5. And I was like, so that's when you get that kind of singularity. He's like, no, Megan, no, you're not even close. And if you don't get to level 3 I couldn't even believe it.
So anyways,
what?
So it's like one of those things where, there's so many conversations and people we meet. I wish we could just kind of have like a GoPro camera on us and then just record the whole thing and play it back, because there's so much
We want our
benefit.
lip army with us.
Yeah,
and
we just
won't
the
listen.
benefit to see it
Yeah.
and get access to this. So we're going to try the next best thing, because sometimes people don't replicate the same discussion in small format versus larger.
Yeah.
We asked Shiv to come join us in the class. Ideally, he was going to go on with us today. He might even be on right now, but he's got like the UN delegation. He's meeting with the president of Turkey and all the delegates from India. And I was like, right, fine, take care of that first. So he committed September 30th to come, and we'll have like almost a chat with him. And I told him, I want to just continue this conversation we had. And there's a thesis that we have, which is, he's discovering the notion of, we have so much mental chatter in our heads. The level of practice and almost the layers you have to practice, how long every day for how many years, just to get to, he talked about the sense of calm, singularity, like a fly could land in your head and you can see it but not react. I mean, it's like, it's one of those things where most of us will never get to, will never actually put the time of investment in, but it's great to hear what it looks like for someone real who's gone there and who's going there. What does it look like? What does it do? We work with a lot of individuals, and in fact, where we believe most of us have to go is what we call active meditation. How do you get to that point of focus and calm much faster? And what we have found is working in teams and in pairs, the idea of a TP, a training partner, you can accelerate that process much faster as a team versus solo, but it's always cool to hear what each part looks and sounds like. So that's like one of the cool people we met. But then separately, I'll show you this cool grid. We met another guy, this guy, Simon Littler. I have not seen him in forever. He reaches out, invites us to this wine tasting dinner thing Meg and I went to last night, but he was telling us first the stuff he's working on. And so through his love of wine, this guy is one of the top wine people in the world. He runs I think it's called a global wine forum for, if you ever heard of Davos or the World Economic Forum, it's like the global leaders and CEOs meet once a year in Davos. They bring these leaders together through wine. They end up actually kind of
connecting and bonding. Yeah.
Like, and their view is the amount of money you spend on wine is the same amount they want you to donate to help, nonprofits and whatnot. But I mean, the connections are just through the roof, crazy connected people on wine. But he's involved with this group, and we're going to bring him on to tell it, because the story is so mind-boggling cool that you almost have to hear it from him. It's not one of those video camera things. A group called the Inside Circle. It's in San Francisco, I think. They're all over the place now, but they work with basically inside prisons. And the process of just truth, we talk about no lying, hiding, faking, getting the truth. They work inside prisons, and it's about for them in prison, lying and telling the truth can be life and death. And so the process of how they hold each other accountable, they even have these 3-day journeys you go in there. But he was sharing this crazy story as his first experience with this organization.
The organization is called Inside Circle.
But this crazy experience where this white guy, life imprisonment prison guy, who finds out at age 18, his father is part of the KKK. And at gunpoint at 18, he's given a noose to hang someone. And the process of actually holding that burden, and then in prison, while this guy Simon's there talking about this to 3, Black, prison mates from Compton, and just the process of
confessing the details of what happened,
what transpired, and the beauty ultimately of forgiveness. It was so awesome. I mean, we were in tears listening to him.
He was in probably tears. About 50 years old. And I watched 10 years just pour off him as he was able to
bad things happen. And yet the human capacity to forgive, even in the craziest environments. But I need him to share the story because it's so much better. And I kind of ruined some of the punchlines. So you have to pretend you didn't hear any of this. But from that to last night at dinner, it was a 10-person dinner. I'll show you some of, we know nothing of wine. So it's you
could hand me a $30 bottle of wine, same as $1,000 bottle.
And I'm thinking, is there any ginger ale? And I think every bottle was $1,000. The most expensive is $5,000. And we're drinking wine.
If
that's
we're
never
wordy
been-
today, it's because we drank wine and we don't do that on Wednesday nights. We're supposed to be
Yeah, I know.
prepping for a lip. So let's
And,
get.
and like there are
let's
bottles
just-
open
just-
that like no one had in the world tasted to date. There's only one barrel made,
Mhm.
but like we know nothing, and I feel guilty spitting it out because it doesn't taste that great. But like,
Or pouring it out
I'm
in
thinking two people we sat next to. It was only 10 people that and we actually brought Mackie with us as well. It was kind of cool experience, but they may feature him in the World Economic Forum thing as a charity globally, help him expand, which is kind of cool. But a very cool thing was one peer person we sat next
Can you
to.
tell Charlie had a drink last night? You're
Just my
funny.
coffee kicking in.
Just coffee's just.
This
Second
person who is currently the COO of General Atlantic, big private equity firm. But before, for 5 years, he was the dean of, I think I'm going to pronounce it wrong, INSEAD or INSEAD. It's like the
INSEAD.
top business school in France, I think, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a big name. It's funny where he advised the president of Stanford trying to win this contract in New York from Bloomberg. They built a new like graduate school on Roosevelt Island, and he had no idea, but he was in the background, I guess, advising the president of Stanford. And I was like, well, you know why Stanford didn't win? It was because actually I helped Cornell win, so I was on the board for Bloomberg, but that's a different story.
They want to
But-
see us drinking and what level of truth would actually
well,
get
so
to.
I'm gonna touch on that. We have plans for that actually coming up
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. But then the other person we sat next to is kind of cool. You ever watch the show Billions? Like,
Remember,
with
Damien-
Axe,
yeah.
what's his name?
The
Axe,
actor is Damien.
right? I think it's based on Stephen Cohen, the hedge fund guy, right? And then there's a woman in there who's a performance coach. Her name is Wendy, I think.
Yeah, I think it's
Right?
Wendy, right?
We met the real life woman who the thing is built on.
And
Like-
you know it's her, which
and-
is
and-
Bobby Axelrod.
Yes,
Yes,
Bobby
thank you,
Axelrod,
Nicole.
right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we sat and had dinner with this
Wendy
woman
Rose.
who is like, she got written up, I guess, in the Wall Street Journal as the most powerful woman in the hedge fund world, who doesn't even run a hedge fund, but she is like literally the
live version of her.
live version of her. Pretty badass woman. But like, we had some fun and made some fun of her too as well. But
She would not admit to being Wendy, but she's Wendy.
yeah, no, she
She was like,
she's
I
the
won't,
character.
no comment.
She's
It
the
was like a no
character.
comment.
But so cool stuff there. We also met Beyonce's chef for a year on tour. So he's coming in tomorrow to try out and sort of win our business, which we're going to find ways to give you guys access to some of this. The founder of 305, a whole bunch of stuff. So a lot of stuff happening. This is a fraction, but putting all that aside, sorry, I was just trying to buy some time as people are coming in. And I went over.
People came in 10 minutes ago.
All right. I was
Yes,
not.
But I
paying
love
attention.
seeing so many faces. A lot of you, I haven't seen your actual face. You're putting your video cameras on. It's so much fun to
Okay.
see you guys.
So the topic wanted to cover today is this topic of
Speaking up.
and we didn't know what to call it title wise. And so this is the placeholder title that never got updated. But this idea of how do we navigate in today's environment that it's not safe to speak up? And it's crazy. The more we've done work with public schools and just even colleges and universities, just the education systems. I'm sorry, give me a second. Let me see if I can get rid of this bottom bar, which,
Now it's all about the bottom bar.
Oh yeah, there it is. It's like figure it out somehow.
They want to play a drinking game with you, Charlie. We're going to do this in person someday.
Yeah,
Yeah?
No,
Someday soon.
someday being
Someday
like
soon, within a few
we'll have an
weeks.
announcement that's going to
We
be
have
like
an
within weeks.
announcement. We have an
But
announcement.
the notion it's not safe to speak up. And I think this is happening everywhere. It's happening even at very young ages. We are filtering and trimming, and how many of us are told like how to speak correctly, how to argue correctly, how you should not raise your tone. I was going to share in my sort of mini vulnerable moment, like I had this massive blowout fight with my wife this weekend. And in the fight, like she's a master of using those words where, you shouldn't criticize this and you shouldn't talk in this tone. And it just gets me even angrier because, what I think the real choice we all face is, do we pick the path of appearances or do you pick the path of real? And when you're upset,
Yeah.
right, we face in real time that fork. What am I going to pick? Am I going to pick the whole, let me explain to you how I feel, not like, you put all these filler words and whatnot because we're trained. And now it's in the internet of how to argue, how to speak, as opposed to just fight, just argue, just say what's on your mind. And so this notion of just think about a manager or a leader, even whatever organization, even as a parent, right? What are you supposed to say and not say? Do you know how much literature there is now and like, well, how to speak to your child and how to speak to your manager and how to speak to your subordinate? There's so much. It's almost like when something happens and, when you get that kind of emotional, like you can feel it at your tip of your ears, kind of, you're getting like upset or angry about something. And you're while trying to voice what you want to say, thinking about how am I supposed to say it? What's the right way to say something as opposed to just be real and say it. And I love this image that you can't speak, cover, look, like I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. It's gone so dangerous that human beings are struggling to communicate. And in fact, when we speak, I would ask you, and especially difficult topics, are you really saying what you think? Or are you saying what you read? Are you regurgitating something that it's like, are you saying what you're supposed to say? Or are you actually saying what you're thinking, right?
Well, it's interesting. It led to a conversation last night. So Charlie and I years ago did a TED Talk at the CAA, and the title of the group was asking us, what was the title? What did you teach? And what we taught was why people lie. Why do people lie? So of course the question is, what, for one, what are they should know a lot about that, right? Because as agents, you have to, like, their job is to do that. And the question is, why do people lie? And, some people say, well, I'm not lying. Well, I'm just not saying the full truth. I'm not sharing everything. Well, okay. So it's a form of lying, hiding, faking, we talk about, but why do they do that? Well, they don't want to be judged. I mean, you wouldn't, if you're not worried about being judged, you would say whatever you want to say, but we're so worried about our appearance. Yeah, we're worried about being judged. We're worried about looking stupid, looking whatever, like the worst of you is what you're trying to cover up, right? Is what you're trying to protect.
This notion of the perfect image.
Yeah.
We shared this in one of our earlier going way back classes that I love this quote from this Navy leader that we're all misfits.
Yeah.
Right. And then when they have their group, their tribe, their team, they welcome them in by giving them these call signs. And the call signs are to actually make fun of your misfitness. So like,
Right.
if you try to act too cool, this one guy was called Jefe because he's so not Jefe. Like there's like all these elements of mocking people.
Yeah.
And the point was, we welcome you in and we're all misfits, but you're our misfit. And that notion of being accepted for who you are being so powerful and important. And we didn't have a chance to put it in this presentation, but the thing that we're going to, there's a whole expose Wall Street Journal sent out this week, Facebook, Instagram. It was an internal research study done by Facebook looking at Instagram, shared at the internal level and leaked out, basically how damaging Instagram is to people. And it said it's all around the perfect image, feeling I'm reading from a phone, feeling attractive, having enough money are the most likely to have started on Instagram, feeling inferior because you're not fitting this perfect image. And they're saying 1 in 3 teen girls, body images are worse because of Instagram. I mean, this research was damning on Instagram and how like they feel awful and mental health and everything. Teens who struggle with mental health say Instagram makes it worse. This was like internally shared and done by their research team and it leaked, and God, they're not going to be in good shape from that. But like this notion of what social media and comparison, all this stuff has done. So before I jump into this topic, quick recap from last week, which I thought this is also kind of relevant. Amy Cuddy is someone we've known quite well. She's one of the top TED Talk speakers. She's known for that fake it till you make it, that kind of victory thing.
Power posing.
She shared this recently, this whole notion of you might be feeling what they called pandemic flux syndrome. Now, the simple language we like is, we know when people flip-flop, I think we talked about this idea of you can go from being so scared when COVID hit, and most of us won't even properly remember what it was like when COVID first hit for the first 3 to 6 months. I think we were all just scared like crap, shitless out of our minds, doing sanitizer to the point where our hands are cracking, spraying down everything, trying to avoid everybody, and just happy to even have a job or happy to have a home and happy to, to then like
happy to be alive and
right?
people were dying.
And what's happening now, right? It's a totally different environment. There's this great resignation, right? I think this idea of YOLO, you only live once, is coming out, and you've had people quitting left and right with no jobs aligned. All all kinds of businesses can't find talent is not what you expected, right? And if you go through this kind of, you think about your own mortality and death for that long, that you think about, I could die. And we've lost people. We all at some point now know someone probably lost to COVID. What does that do? And what mental state does it put you in? And we shared last week, and share this because I think we think about very in practice, practical tips. So this idea of, red light, green light, just to recognize that reckless decision-making, simply said, is a decision that you're going to end up regretting. A decision that will create more pain. And the effort is kind of what it is. Like when you have that, when you do stuff and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to do this. Just recognize you're not healthy inside. Even if you slept on it one night, the next morning when you revisit, you might make a better decision. Now, keep in mind, you can make a reckless decision and still recover, but you have to be hyper alert to do that. A lot of us will downward spiral, dig our heels in, further justify that decision being correct. And that's where things can really go bad in life. That's the red light. And we share this because we had several even leaders in our company saying, wow, that class really helped me this week, because I find myself kind of uttering the words, fuck it, let's just do this. And then it's like, whoa, wait, I just learned this. This is a red light, stop, like just even overnight, think about it, because you're about to do something that you're going to have to just create more pain in your life than needed. On the flip side, the green light, taking risks smartly. This idea of OODA loop, it's a military term for decision-making, observe, orient, decide, then act, versus most people do they just keep thinking about what to do, but don't act. The need to pull and fire off the OODA loop early in the week, Monday, Tuesday. And we've had many leaders write to us, inside Next Jump, outside Next Jump, from this class too, talking about it feels like a sprint, like a HIIT workout that, oh my God, I feel exhausted from it. But there was more activity in the week. And so kind of this, giving you a tool of thinking how to act and change next week, how to change the future because you're doing something. Versus doing nothing leads you to Groundhog's Day, but also recognizing don't dig yourself into a hole by making reckless decisions.
The same thing as a workout. When you do a HIIT workout, your heart rate really starts to, you do feel something very similar when you're taking a risk, when you're doing something that could feel reckless, but you're like, I think this is the right thing. When you do it, it's hard to know the difference. Yes, some of us will say, I'm just going to do this. Or you might utter words like, I should be doing something. I need to do something. I need to act. I have to. I'm supposed to action something.
Those are all words that, in psychology, they call it the lizard brain.
Right.
It's narratives and ways to say, I'm going to park my brain, shut my brain off, and just close eyes and go. Right. Imagine driving in a car, right? Crowded streets, New York City, children around, but like, you know what?
I gotta drive, so I'm just gonna go.
I'm just gonna close my eyes and step on the gas.
It's like being drunk and driving.
It's how to catch yourself when you're about to do that. And sometimes if you can't do it overnight, literally just go to the bathroom and come back and think about it. Like you need that tiny break before you pull that trigger. Most times you will regret the decisions that you made when you feel that way. And so once again, not that you can't recover, but usually you'll see downward spirals tend to occur. And usually when you make 6 to 7 wrong calls like that is when real big pain occurs. So be careful. But an interesting discussion I had last night with the guy who was the dean of this business school, INSEAD, I think, or INSEAD, whatever he said, but was, the trends we're seeing is this. People tend to flip-flop from a fuck it attitude to another fuck it attitude, meaning the first set with this great resignation showed up from employees, a lot of younger employees, and just without even jobs lined up saying, you know what, that's it. I don't even have a job. I'm just going to quit. And we've been seeing right now signals that the leaders in organizations are getting very angry and frustrated, can't speak up, can't voice. And there's like this growing, it's like a pressure cooker with steam that needs to come out. And they're in this effort mode of wanting to make a reckless call. Should we just fire all the employees? Should we force them all to come back to the office? Should we just, there's all kinds. So I don't know what will happen, but my discussion with the group was that in our view, what we've seen historically, people tend to flip-flop from extreme to extreme before they meet in the middle. So I don't know what will happen, but I'm a little scared for the world, to be very honest, because there is a lot of, whether it's called pandemic flux, there's a lot of kind of like from seeing, we were all straitjacketed mentally and physically, and now we're like trying to do something. And so I saw this on Twitter. Someone said the past few weeks have not been great. Took myself out to lunch today, got this dessert, recommend. I share this because maybe there's other outlets.
I wish we knew where he went and did that. That looks delicious.
Point is, I mean, imagine going and having lunch during like Monday or Tuesday and you have this. I'm not saying one should go do this and don't do it every day, but there are other ways to sometimes just let out a little steam. So I saw that. Maybe this is a little more less dangerous than whatever decision you might make.
Yes.
So anyways, couple announcements.
Dangerous for Brent though.
So
see Brent sweating.
So this is the wine we drank last night, but I share this picture. I took it off the guy's phone and I found this fascinating. So this is a map of their vineyard and this is tied to geology and the way they curated this amazing wine. Every single different color point, they planted grape seeds. And then years of curating seeds for every variation on the color to see how the wine tastes different for every little variation in color. And over like 18 years developing wine. And I'm like, wow, like never something I would do, right? But it's just cool meeting people who like have this love and obsession. And I've never heard this before that, I don't know how many of you have tasted like the best wine in the world, but their point is when you taste something that incredible, you get to this point where he called it like singularity.
Yeah, almost like meditating.
Like,
I'm hearing singularity, multiple conversations, one about wine, one about actual meditation.
Shiv talks about it through meditation.
They both talked about the same thing, but one is through wine and one is through meditating.
It's kind of
how
like
could you get to singularity?
But it's like all the noise in the world, and suddenly in a split second, you have like the sense of calm before he goes back out into the craziness of the world.
Yeah.
That it can happen with an experience of wine. And he talked about that experience is a very vulnerable experience. And so you're seeing like leaders and so he does a wine thing, but also with food and getting leaders to cook together, and you'll see the CEO struggle and, and so I'm sharing this because we're going to bring him in to do this experience for our members. So, so this is going to the next announcement. Let me kind of read to you what's here. So we made a decision. We can't hold big events, but we're going to start to do smaller events. Next week, what you're seeing in the sheet here at the bottom is the handwritten versions. We're going to beta launch this invite only next week. New York, Boston, and London are 3 offices. We're going to run and create what we call Premium COA. It's COA running in person. So you'll be able to see some of the classes running virtually as well. And then September 30th, we're going to let you reserve it for anybody first come, first serve basis. So if some of you are sitting here saying, this is how they're looking to make money, I hope you realize that our giving of education, giving has been our marketing strategy always for 27 years. But we're going to put like a token thing on Wow Points, which is what you earn if you shop on Perks at Work. 2,500 Wow Points is $25. 5,000 for you and a friend is $50. And I say token because we are the cost of the running a day. We'll provide food all day long. Think of like what people are missing, right?
They give it like a community center where you can come in, you're going to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You get exercise, workouts. You're going to have some fun. You're going to get to, if you need to have a meeting, a Zoom call, we'll have conference rooms set up. You're going to be surrounded by a lot of cool people. So you can do a lot of different things during the day. And we're paying for everything. Unless we're going to have a few extra things. We're going to start to add in some extras. Like I think London wants to do massages. I think here we're going to have Pilates and reformers. So there'll be extra costs for that for people who want to do those.
I think we're going to throw in, but like, like hair salon. Hair salon. We're going to, whether you want to cut, blow out, something, we're going to probably, subsidize it like 75%. So like, we have a partner that we brought in, we'll do mixology class. So once again, there'll be a little supplemental extra, but once again, we'll probably subsidize like 75%. So food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, healthy food all day long. You're kind of like Megan said, like learning about leadership, taking a fitness class, doing a sleep meditation class. If you have back pain or short Pilates class, the best instructors. Mackie's going to teach truth reps. You can learn how to get better in basketball while learning how to tell truth to each other. Just really cool stuff. So we started testing part of it last week. Next Thursday, we're going much more aggressive. We might bring in Beyonce chef to be part of it too, teach a cooking class maybe. So all kinds of stuff. So each office is going off on their own, but like, I know some of you are out of town and maybe you'll come in, but you can kind of locally reserve and book. So think September 23rd. If you're interested, invite only, let us know for next week's beta, which means we're trying to get the kinks out of the system. But then by September 30th, it's kind of open for reservation.
Katie Poe wants a building and it wants to open up in DC. Chris Kelly wants us to do a West Coast. We
Yeah.
could eventually do
Ooh,
pop-ups. How
ooh,
cool would that be?
Ooh.
Pop-ups.
All right.
I don't
You know
exactly
what?
know what that would be, but
Never-
I want to do a pop-up.
Okay, so
somehow,
we'll do
an
that on
event.
October 15th.
And Chris
Sorry.
Kelly and Katie, you volunteered so nicely to help us create pop-ups
Okay.
of at least just one class. We'll try something somehow. We'll figure it out. We're first gonna do this in New
Yeah,
York,
so-
Boston, London.
So like,
But let's
so
consider.
we're going to add in, I
pop-ups.
mean, like this guy, Simon Littler with his wine stuff. I mean, he has programs that go from $3,000 to $10,000 programs. We'll subsidize the majority of it. The point is that this more of a token day pass idea, and you just come and be part of these things. And so we have this guy, Peter Gorman, who literally just wrote the manual for Major League Baseball and training and is doing some other really cool stuff. He's coming in and he's going to, so like he might bring in like a Misty Copeland, the ballerina, and other, Olympic athletes. Will bring in sort of like all the stuff and kind of like a day of work. You can do your meetings in here, eat, network, work out, like socialize, kind of what we're missing, right? The isolation of work from home. And, companies are trying to figure out how do we turn office into, whether it's a social gathering or the whatever it might be. I don't think they have the content at the level that we already have curated. And so the food, the exercise, the leadership, the
I
lessons,
love Lip Army
or
on
just
tour. We're
work.
going on, it's a tour.
Yeah,
It's
so
a tour.
3
Starting in
offices
3
locally,
cities.
beginning right away while the virtual is running. So
Come learn with us, come dance with us,
Moving
come eat
aggressive.
with us, right?
now additionally, this is a note, I literally just copied and
Mhm.
pasted an email for myself. We're bringing back our in-person leadership academies, a modified version though, just 2 days as opposed to 3 days. And so groups of 10 to 12 leaders, 10 to 20 leaders coming in and spending 2 full days in our office parked in. So Wednesday will be custom created to kind of help train these leaders on how to be better decision-making team members for the 21st century. The whole notion of how do you put the right discipline and habits in place for brain-powered decision-making? How do you dial down fear of making mistakes? How do you dial up risk-taking? And so we're going to run this starting in New York. We'll add Boston and probably London, but then the Thursday will just be part of the premium COA, just going to participate. So we've got some really cool people from different industries kind of trying to pocket. So we put out a couple of feelers, they jumped on it right away. And so if you have interest, your organization, your team, you want to curate your group of 10 or 20, let us know. We can always add extra cool people on top of it too. So it's just, we always loved,
It's making me
the-
nervous. It's some risk taking,
is
getting back
risk-taking.
into the mix with these.
you have, by the way,
events.
you have to be vaccinated across the board for all
Yes.
these things. So
Mhm.
if you're not vaccinated right now, the world's putting you in a straitjacket. So you're not allowed to come in here either. But restaurants and stuff, you just can't go.
You're just funny.
But what's interesting is this, over the years, what we have loved the most was like last night's dinner, too many hedge fund people. So like Mackie, Mega, and I are probably the more interesting people just because they had only hedge fund people. Like, I love
You're
meeting
getting
people.
a lot of truth
No, but,
here.
no, but the best by far is when you sit down with someone who works in public schools,
Yeah.
with someone who is like
Yeah.
a Navy SEAL or Marine in the military, and then you have a junior military senior, then you have like someone who's in a Fortune 500 company, and someone who's doing a startup, and someone's doing a nonprofit, and someone who's reformed prisoner work, and they're all talking and starting to connect and realizing how much commonality there is.
Mhm.
It's just very cool. And the learning accelerates. So that's the whole point of that.
Mhm.
So I know
Now on to the lesson, guys. At 11:30.
Sorry.
Not bad, not
Sorry.
bad,
All
not
right.
bad.
this was was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
There was this individual at a school. The school is Portland State University. And this professor resigned and published his resignation letter. So I'm going to show you, it's a lot to read here. It's not the full letter, but I'll just read to you parts of what was in there. he said that the purpose of instruction was to lead my students to a particular conclusion. Rather, I sought to create conditions for rigorous thought. You know, the idea of what education is supposed to be is not to tell someone what they should think, or it's to teach them like how to think and how to hunt and have tools to like just kind of what we call explore the edges, right? Like, is this right or is this right? And to go, and that's what he talked about, why he loved teaching. Yet, like, what's happened in today's day and age is there's an intolerance of divergent beliefs and opinions. It created a culture of offense where students are now afraid to speak openly and honestly. And he said, I witnessed students refusing to engage with different points of views, and they're being accused of microaggressions. And he said that he tried to talk about them with colleagues and with the school. And the more he brought it up, the more retaliation he faced. And you know, he talked about, I decided to study the new values that were engulfing at Portland State University and so many other educational institutions. Values that sound wonderful, like diversity, equity, and inclusion. But what we're actually doing is the opposite. That we are supposed to celebrate diversity of thinking. We're supposed to celebrate, especially in schools, the fact that, like, you know, it's like a place to debate extremes. You know, do you believe in abortion? I don't believe in abortion. Do you believe in this kind of government? Do you believe in this? And to have that open dialogue and still walk out not hating each other.
Not hating each other, right?
And yet it's set up now where everyone is so scared to speak up. The students are, the professors are, and this professor was so frustrated that quit. And this is like a trend that's happening everywhere. Even last night, we're talking about this you know, woman's son.
Yeah, she's terrified. We call her Wendy now from Billions, but she's terrified sending her kid to college. She was like, it just seems scary now. Like, it doesn't feel like it used to be.
And so this was a slide, which is a little blurry, so it's a little small, but Amy Edmondson, someone that we've spent time with, who created the term psychological safety. And someone created a scale with her work that there's different levels of scaling. And you hear the word psychological safety come up a lot. And people say, I don't feel safe, so I can't speak up. And like, I like it, and I don't like it. I'll tell you what I don't like about what, first, I mean, we're big fans of her work and so love the thing. And even she talked about the misunderstandings of her work. People think psychological safety, they think about safety, right? They think about, like, do you feel safe? And our point is, when you go into organizations where psychological safety, you get a high score, it doesn't look and sound safe. Like this, you go to the prison system, you go to certain like military commands, especially, or FBI when they're on mission. You come in our company, you'll be like, whoa, I can't believe the level of difficult discussion happening so aggressively, so real time. Are you offended? Are you okay? Outsiders coming, are you okay? Are you like, and high psychological safety. When you walk into any room that has high psychological safety, you will hear the real stuff. You know, when people say, keep it real, you will hear real, and real is messy. And so, like, you know, when I look at the scale all the way to the right, you know, collaborate effectively across silos and expertise, consistently speak up with ideas and questions and problems, effectively engage in exploratory dialogue on high importance topics, engage in conflict without fear of reprisal, you know, respond effectively to change in our environment. You know what real psychological safety looks like? Think of writing this almost an opposite. Engage in conflict that has tons of repercussions. And repercussions are there. You don't respond effectively to change. You actually voice, you know what, I don't want to do that. I hate that thing you're trying to change. The idea of effectively engage in exploratory dialogue, no, you ineffectively engage. What does ineffective engagement look like? But the point is this, but you don't stop there. You go to the difficulty, you take the break, and then you revisit and you mend. You know, the idea that the strength of relationships, organizations, is in the mending, is in that whole, like, after the fact, how you get up, how you know.
Are you saying in many ways learning how to fight is learning how to make up?
Yes.
Yeah, because
But
you're
you'll never learn
how
how
to
to
ma-
make up
if
if
you
you
don't
don't
fight
engage
in
in
the
these
fight
fights,
without worrying about
difficult
everything you
conversations.
can't.
And I
or
don't
cannot-
mean physical fights, but we are having mental battles everywhere. The level of time and energy it takes Shiv Khemka and learning meditation
Yeah.
to calm the mind on the battles we face every day. The whole Instagram comparison.
Mhm.
But how do we learn to get past that place? So
I like what you're saying, Hamish, stronger after a real challenge. Yes, you get, it's a muscle to, and it's not learning how to argue, because that can sound like, oh, you learn the words of what to say when you're
no,
upset.
this was my fight
How
with
do
my
you
wife. Like
feel? You know, you're making me not feel safe. Like there's so many ways to not argue correctly, but I feel like
I think about it
it's
this
more
way.
about engaging in it. And just like anything else, you build a muscle. Just like, I mean, meditation, I cannot believe how much structure and how much discipline and how frequently you need to practice to even get to level 1 of 8 levels. It could take you years, just like exercise.
But the whole
which
point is this.
you're going to do it wrong, right?
The whole point is to embrace doing it wrong. It is human to do it wrong.
Right.
It is human to argue and say the wrong words that you regret saying. And then realize like that is truly being vulnerable. That's me showing my humanness. You do your humanness too. We go
Right.
back and forth, but we get to a place where we're on same team, we're on same mission. Like we're here to help each other, better each other, and then also go make the world better.
Yeah.
Like the whole notion of that's where we need to get to. Not the, well, I don't like your word choice. I don't
Yeah.
like your tone. I don't like the way you're fighting. And I'm like, but I'm angry. I'm fighting, right? So I'm picking whatever word comes to mind. Like, it's like, I'm trying to describe how I feel, and you're going
Well,
at
the
it.
second you start trying to choose your words, now you forget the real feeling you're trying to get across, right?
Yes.
So then you start to get to a place where I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
So this is the last slide. Let me just kind of walk you through this, and we'll love to talk more with this group.
Yeah.
So let me kind of walk you through the slide, starting from the top to bottom. At the very top slide you saw before, this idea of dark versus light, right? For those of you in the class, the whole world's moved where technology is automating anything that it can see. Anything that has data to it is in the light. Data only shows up once you've done something. Data does not show up when you've never moved. When you're standing still, there is no data. So think of data as like a car. Data comes out of the exhaust pipe. Only once the car moves does data show up. And when there's data, artificial intelligence and technology can automate and do all that stuff. In the dark, navigating the dark, unknown. It's like walking into a dark room. That is the job of human beings, but it cannot be done unless done in teams. Walking through a dark room alone, right? It's like walking through the streets at night and alone in the dark. Scariest thing. It's amazing one person, what it can do. And when you're there, and imagine if you weren't like physically holding hands, but you're in the dark, complete pitch black. Like I think it was when Hurricane Sandy hit.
Yeah.
I've never seen New York City so dark. I've never seen and walked New York City where 3 feet in front, I couldn't see someone. It was that dark. I lived downtown. But this notion of when you're in the dark, when it's that quiet, that dark, it's scary.
Yeah.
Why in prison, the worst thing you can do, right? The highest form of punishment is solitude.
So yeah,
Right?
solitary.
Solitary.
Right? Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're in a cement, whatever, steel
Well, it's
building
dark and you're
full
alone.
of
It's
killers
like-
and murderers and criminals, and rather than being, you want to
Right.
be with them versus be alone. And
Yeah.
yet that's like,
Yeah.
and the reason is our mind is
Yeah.
lethal.
Yeah.
Our mind is lethal and how it hurts us.
Yeah.
And that's the mental health and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and depression and whatnot. How much of it's coming from self on self.
Yeah.
And the notion of there is nothing in today's world that is light, meaning it's all dark. If you think variables are locked up and hey, you know what, I can move with quite a bit of certainty because I can count on this, I can count on this, I can count on this, not moving, you're just narrating fixed pillars when they're all moving. And new pillars and new data points, we're navigating darkness. And that darkness is what every company is asking for. It's called innovation in the business world. It's called risk-taking when you go to schools. They're all talking the same thing. that's what human beings have to do. But I drew this picture in the middle, this handwritten picture. We shared this before. You know, the average individual who types well on the keyboard types 60 words a minute. They say an average individual can speak at 300 words per minute, but we think at 3,000 to 4,000 words a minute, right? So think about the size of the pipe that's actually happening in our heads versus what comes out of our mouths, right? And then what comes through our keyboards. And then I put 25 to 50 because what happens when you're now typing with your thumbs, right? Or what happens when you're, this is a texting, right? Using mobile devices. When we speak on Zoom, how many words per minute is really coming through? It's more of a walkie-talkie. And this red circle on the left, I believe, is closer to how human beings communicate when we're working virtually, work from home, communicating digitally. It's a tiny pipe to communicate. And basically, I always think we always lean in one direction. When you're talking to someone, whether it's just one person or a bunch of people, are you communicating with them more towards the left, the red circle, or the green circle? The green circle is like the size of the Lincoln Tunnel, right? I want you to think two people trying to communicate at almost a 3,000 to 4,000 words per minute. Now, someone would say, how's that possible? You can't talk that fast. Well, facial expressions, there's all kinds of other setup, the environment, that class we taught about the extended mind, right? The thing that's interesting about human beings, unlike machines, we read signals from everything. If you walk into a friend's house and you're greeted a certain way, if you go in and they have guacamole set up and really nice chips, maybe it's like the purple chips and the lime chips and scoop chips, you're like, wow, they went extra. Instantly, it says something. There's everything you see says something. There's communication that occurs with that. So little of it is verbal. So little of it is written in so many different ways. And so the notion of trying to communicate with that much, communication through a tiny little pipe, that's what will not allow human beings to navigate the dark. So we just put this table really quick.
Yeah, Chris, you're asking in Cleveland, he's saying, my concern is that in a Zoom meeting, arguing will create a below the line situation. You want to unmute Chris and talk to us for a sec? Yeah, sorry. Do you want to just pause for a second? Go ahead, Chris, you can unmute. Let's talk.
Yeah, so I appreciate your points about arguing and having more of those unfiltered with the emotion and getting everything out on the table so a good decision can be made. But my concern or my wondering is that when we're in a Zoom meeting and I'm looking at a bunch of little squares like we are right now, that if we got into that type of discussion, that it could go below the line where people will feel victimized, where they'll feel like a persecutor, they'll, all the below the line, and they won't be open then to actually making a decision that can benefit the organization. So that's my concern there.
So, what's interesting, I'm just drawing something real quick since we don't have actually maybe we do, but we don't have a whiteboard.
Circles of safety.
You see this in here. Circles of safety, right? Yeah. And I want you to think always of circles, and the innermost circle is where you got to first find, build, and nurture. And relationships are like plants or like living organisms. If you're not consistently watering, overwatering is no good, right? Underwatering is no good. And this idea that the speed that we're registering anything, it's got to go somewhere, right? Yeah. And so when it goes nowhere, we keep it to ourselves. The act of processing half-baked thoughts, your instinctive reactions with at least one other person will sharpen what's happening in your head. There's a part where, like in every organization, you have one meeting or even a meeting like this, every one of us will walk away with different thoughts. Some will be offended, some will be really excited. And then there's every variation you can imagine, even stuff that you and I can't even think about. Right. And it's dangerous when it stays just to ourselves. Like there's a place where we need to find a space to process. And kind of why I shared the slide is you want to find a space where you can go, you'll never hit this number on the right, but closer to this, which is why I love this notion of calling it half-baked thoughts. We call it unfiltered communication, UFC. The opposite, it's so much easier to be silent. You know, when you have a real good conversation with either a colleague, a spouse, a friend, think of the speed of the communication. It's like playing speed ping pong back and forth.
I mean, you're
Right?
basically saying to Chris, and I think we're advocating over Zoom, it is very difficult, which is why we talk about in person, the sort of the need for in-person dialogue with conflict at that level is much harder to do. But also doing it in a large group, trying to be efficient about is usually dangerous. I mean, that's why you're
Right.
saying circles of safety.
So-
It is more dangerous. So it's starting, even for, we have meetings with our team, it's much safer for me to say exactly what's on my mind with Charlie before even adding 2 more people into the room. Just adding 2 more people into the room, you're adding more complexity. You add 6 people, 10 people. Yes, you're right. In a group like this, it's much harder because there's so many more people you could offend. There's some retaliation. It's much harder, but it's practicing it first.
And the point is this, you need the space to come out of your mouth the things that would offend.
Right.
You need the space. The idea is reps come before quality.
Right.
Reps come before you know how to do it right. Difficult conversations, just by definition, is difficult. We all suck at it. And you need the space to not have it just in your head. You know how you can say, I've been practicing difficult conversations in my head. I think of what you're going to say. I think of what I'm going to say. And I just practice it all the time by myself in my head. That's not practice. That's you going just psychotic. You need to actually have a conversation with another human being. But that means when you do the reps consistently, you will do it all wrong. You will offend them. You will sound like, narrow-minded. You might even sound like a bigot. You might sound hypocritical. You might sound this, but you need the space to do it. And the more you do it, kind of like Shiv with meditation, you will get to a place where you can effectively, in near real time, engage in difficult topics and navigate pretty well. Human beings will never navigate perfectly, 100% hit. But if you can navigate, and they say usually the bar is for leadership, 95%. Right? If you took score, then you're like what they call an A leader. But 95% doesn't give you a lot of room to get it wrong. But I'm telling you, when you start, you will probably do 95% wrong. So where can my wrong show up? It's like learning to sing for the first time or public speak for the first time. Like you have to actually do it. I'll take this slide off for a second, but this idea of contempt or high alert, but the very bottom, we now read about long COVID, right? That's basically the lingering symptoms of long COVID. So we just shared this week, calling it long IA. So instead of AI, artificial intelligence, it's long industrial age. We're all suffering from the equivalent of long COVID, long IA. We think about like effort and hours and manpower and don't you see I care? Don't you see I'm staying late? And the reality is no, people don't. They care about you making the right judgment. We always say, the number one thing we want out of you, use your head. That's what we want. Apply judgment. But the whole like F it, I need to do it. I should do it. I thought I was supposed to do it. That's like the industrial age, the long IA, the industrial age symptom we have is who knows what's right? What's their instructions?
Instruction.
Right?
Yeah.
Who's giving the order? Like it's so ingrained in us that like there's a belief we have that there's a right way to speak and a wrong way to speak. There's a right word choice and wrong word choice. Like this comes literally from the industrial age and the frustration that's happening in even that Portland State University. They have long IA. They have long COVID equivalent, long industrial age versus we're in a brand new world. I don't know how the hell we're going to navigate this, but I do believe we will figure it out. It's what human beings do, right? We have the power to adjust. Like we are more agile than you realize, but often we need to suffer quite a bit before someone says, okay, not this way anymore. There's a lot of suffering going on right now, like just across leaders, across subordinates, across home, across work. And so we were having this conversation last night. They're saying the work you guys have been doing, trying to help companies, like you help an organization like the size of the Navy with 640,000 people. Isn't it so difficult, the bureaucracy? Our point was, well, when you look at history with 100-year change, when the pain is great enough and the old model starts to go haywire, you're ripe for change. The old model, if it isn't clear, is going haywire all over the place. And it's getting worse and worse, which means change is happening and coming. We're spending time meeting the people doing some of the most cutting edge stuff in this change. I believe you guys here in this class might be part of that change.
And yet it takes a lot of courage, because I see, even just looking at the thread, kind of, Kimmy saying, don't everybody, sort of all the participants have to be practicing in difficult conversations it's like, you can't wait for everybody to get their reps in. You just have to start you just have to start. And I think starting is very scary. I mean,
Mhm.
that first kind of judgment or frustration, or maybe walking out, slam the door, you're like, what, like and you just don't know what to expect. And you sort of wish that, well, the whole world is going to start doing it. And some fictitious person said, we're going to start doing this today. We're all going to have difficult conversations. There's going to be no retaliation. Go. It's just not going to happen. Right.
But here's a part. See, this is where it's BS.
Yeah.
No retaliation.
No, of course,
it's not true.
it's always retaliation.
You offend someone, they're gonna look at you differently the next time.
You're an adult, like there's,
But then to be able to go up to them afterwards saying, I
Yeah.
think I offended you.
Yeah.
As opposed to, the safer, did I offend you? No, that's okay. No, I think I offended you.
Mhm.
Before you even react, let me tell you why I think I offend you, what I said. Now that's risky, because there's a
Right,
sense
right.
of, I'm exposing myself by even saying, I think this is what I said that probably pissed you off.
Yes.
And then the person's like, actually, that part, yes, that part, no, but can I add a few more things? Then you're like, all right, this conversation is getting real.
Yes.
And the speed of those conversations. But I also think the idea of the pipe, right? Even when we're doing Zoom, and this is where I think for me and Megan and I, we could use your help. A lot of you are work from home. We have our largest base of employees work from home. I don't know how to fix the pipe issue. There's a pipe that's tiny, that red circle, versus I know in person it changes the size of the Lincoln Tunnel. But I know there are other variables to use.
Mhm.
It's not just about typing with your thumbs or the keyboard and voice. Like there's other environmental factors. Suddenly we talk lying down, both of us, maybe that does something different. Maybe suddenly we both do something that puts us in sync. There's communication with another human being. There's so many other things. I mean, a perfect example, I think last Christmas, we had this Christmas party and we were communicating while doing mixology. It just felt like more fun. Now, I don't mean that we all need a drink, right? And have alcohol and be mixing drinks and making wrong drinks and, but there are elements of making goof ups. You say something wrong, you slurred a word, like you mix the mixology with, instead of 1 part vodka and 3 parts mixer, you flipped it by accident and you're now like, there are things like this that add to communication.
Mhm.
Like, it's almost like human beings are not like machines. We do not do things with precision perfectly. And the act of exposing proactively our errors, our mistakes, our misfitness is the biggest part of what makes it real. But we're so fixated in appearances
Right.
and we've been so trained to speak with appearances in mind above all else.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, but we need to find a space, even if it's one person, even over Zoom,
Yeah.
where I can do the total opposite.
We were talking
Right.
about over Zooms, think about long distance relationships.
Mhm.
If you think about long distance relationships that you have in your life, I have a twin sister who lives in Boston and we're close, very, very close, but we both have families. It's just a lot. And you have to invest in those relationships. And I went almost a year not seeing her during COVID. But you have to invest in it, and you have to take walks and talk at the same time. Maybe not always FaceTiming, but you have to invest in small ways too. Texting, phone call, you really have to, because I equate, I think, the Zoom notion and working from home to long distance relationships, because you're not seeing them every day.
Mhm.
So I think it might be a helpful exercise to think about the people who you have invested in, family, friends at that level. That's how to replicate some of that. Sometimes I do cook dinner talking to my sister. We'll be doing it at the same time. So I wonder if there's ways to think about it that way, because otherwise it feels like there's work and then but we have relationships that are over the phone.
But can I
Zoom.
tell you, I'll give you sort of kind of my top of mind thoughts. Imagine we even come in, I want to teach you something and you teach me something. And so we're going to teach each other, just the most creative and best way to do a squat. I'm just making this up, right? Squats kind of can look silly, right? For kids, you're sticking your butt out. And imagine just kind of doing that in the middle. And that's something that we bring. And we're just going to, over the next month, we're going to perfect, kind of giving each other tips on how to do the perfect squat, right? And then how to do the wrong squat. And I don't know, I'm just making this up where
Yeah.
those things matter. They matter because it shows goof ups. It shows, the misfitness. It shows that like, we're not like Google search, we're not like this machine that you're supposed to pop up the perfect thing. Like you might fall in the process and then someone's laughing and that's okay, and you might need to unmute so they can hear you laugh, right? Like, and so that, but there's these parts where we want to figure this out. Like we think it's important, but, and we're experimenting and stuff in person. We have an advantage in person because there's a lot of other things that allow communication to speed up. And instead of a small red pipe, it's the pipe the size of Lincoln Tunnel. But we know the virtual side has to be figured out too. And so I was thinking like, we want to enlist your help. If you have tips and ideas, we can share. We want to ask our employees to figure it out. We're asking other organizations. We will figure stuff out.
Josh, tell us about what you're talking about. Ray Dalio, you're talking about, I didn't know you were here, Josh. Good to see you.
I actually got to run to another meeting, but it just came out. Dots, the dot collector from Ray Dalio and the principles, all that stuff. They've now incorporated it into Zoom. I just started reading about it last night because it was on Twitter. But anyway, it's supposed to incorporate microfeedbacks, all that kind of stuff. I just jumped in halfway through your conversation. You asked that thing and I was like, oh, I just read this last night. Let me put it in the chat. So I'll leave it to you all to figure out if that's something.
So can I tell you like what's more interesting is this? So yeah, no, they did integrate it in. I think some of our people took that test. I want you to instead take the test if you take it and then talk about why it's wrong, right?
He's
But when I say wrong, meaning
there's
like
a Zoom dot collector Zoom app.
No, I know. He integrated this thing into Zoom. But my point is this: don't let someone tell you, right? Just because they're richer or have more technology or have more data scientists, who you are.
Try it.
Right? Try it and then now argue with each other why it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why I think you're the total opposite of what it said, Josh. Or why you think like, and to me, this is the idea of difficult conversation. This is the idea of not what someone told you, but your own judgment. 21st century is applying your own judgment, and it matters. Your voice, your judgment, your opinion matters. But catch yourself when you're regurgitating someone else's words, thinking, identity. Like we have been so brainwashed, we don't even know when we're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know all of us have our one-line zingers and party lines to sound smart intellectually, right? From whether it's a TED Talk or whether it's a therapist and what they say and how you should respond, to make someone feel heard and how to argue right. Like, try the opposite. But once again, don't do it in a large Zoom room, Chris, right? You find one person and train together and train regularly and pick apart, like kind of teaching each other squats, right? And once again, go difficult, go controversial. Right? How long can you hold it? I bet I can beat you, right? But you're not even doing it right. Like, I don't know, just the idea of that, it takes that kind of, other factors matter a lot when it comes to human beings. I love that thing with the extended mind, that author and the researcher talking about. Computers work the exact same in the dark, in the lights, in a cold room, in a rainy day, whatever it might be, but human beings do not. Time of day, we act differently, like a rainy day, judges, convict differently than on sunny days. It's like, we are different, right? And the slightest thing can throw us off, right? You wake up in the morning and your roommate or spouse or child or someone throws you one wrong word, one wrong glare. It could ruin you for the next few hours and maybe then spiral you into the rest of the day. Like that's not how a computer acts. And this idea that I love what they said, the worst thing that they ever did was compare the human brain to computers, because it's not. It's an organic thing that also has these superpowers, but the very superpowers also has its kryptonite featuring like impediments, right? Like we make emotional judgments and decisions, and we can't distinguish which one is good and which one's bad. And so as a result of it, we choose to just keep it to ourselves and stay silent. So we never sharpen and refine our intuition, right? That 3,000 to 4,000 word processing mind we have, if you can sharpen it, and the only way you sharpen it is with another human being. And people like to do the self-sharpening. And you know what? I haven't tried meditation enough to know if that is a more effective way to sharpen. But the people I've seen swear by meditation the most at the highest levels are like billionaires who seem to have way more time than I do, who are doing it in such ways. I'm like, I know most of us will never get to a place 2 hours a day and growing and all Sunday quiet. Like, I want to meet those people to know what they see and what they discovered.
Yeah.
But I know for most of us, that's not realistic. So are there other ways? And what we have found, this notion of active meditation, the active notion of getting to mental chatter calm, comes in teams. When you get, team starts with just 2 people, when you can start to build that, and it's a constant feeding, right? It's, a whole different place.
For the small groups that you guys are in, I'm definitely a petri dish in many ways for you to try this. I don't know if any of you guys tried, the 411s we sent out just to start this process with. I mean, it is safer, right? You don't work with these people. Most of you don't work together, right? So finding ways to try it, because I think otherwise it can get kind of, it's scary. It's scary to go into your own organization and try it. So I don't know if anybody's trying.
I don't think it's interesting, even like, Katie Poe
Okay.
was talking about robots in the
Robots,
floor cleaners, a factory, whatnot,
yeah.
or the warehouse. What's fascinating? The speed that people think. Imagine just approaching anybody, and as soon as they say 1 or 2 things, if you were to actually tell them everything that went through your mind at that moment, which could be, I didn't pay attention, I just picked up 1 word, I picked up this. It's crazy. Like, I want you to think almost like a poker game sitting at a poker table. Everyone's trying to be quiet and everyone's trying to do the bullshit talk, right?
Yeah,
Put the
yeah.
sunglasses on so you can't even read my facial expression.
Yeah.
But, if you actually asked everyone, can you tell me what's going through your head right now?
Yes.
You would be crazy shocked at the volume of what comes out of their mouth, right? What they're picking up, despite everyone trying to be as still as possible and speak nothing that will give them a signal of what I really have in my hand.
A lot of it doesn't make us look good too, right? Which is why we don't usually share it, no?
Well, remember in the game of poker, it's a competitive game of 10 people trying to beat each other, right? You're trying to win by beating the other person. But the way you're processing the speed of every, wait, that person scratched, that person squirmed in their seat, that person chose that word, they told that story twice. Why? Like, just the speed of the signals you read, right? And by the way, that's a game, right? Maybe some of you play poker for a living and that's your income, but most of us, it's just a stupid game, right? And win or lose that game, it's not gonna, make or break my life. Hopefully most of your lives, right? If you have a gambling issue, then, that's a different story, but not for this class. How about the game of life though, right? Whether it's with your, coworker, whether it's with your mentee or mentor, your spouse, your children, think about like that same thing that we will do in a poker game is actually what's happening in real life, except instead of being all quiet and fake sunglasses and saying nothing really substantial, trying to hide everything, like there's signals at 10, 100 times and the speed, and yet we don't share.
It's so funny.
Right?
Chris is like, I tell that to my husband who was beat by Charlie's son in poker when we did that event last year.
Yeah, no, like it would be fascinating to hear how I think he was probably 11 then or something, what he would say and how he beat your husband, right? And how he read him. And, it's like, my point is that like, it's crazy, even like an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, what they're processing and what signals they're reading. And you're thinking, but they're so young, how could they possibly be? 3,000 to 4,000 words a minute, right? 10 times the speed of a fast speaking person is actually what's processing. But then people say, no, my mind's a blank. I'm like, liar. Like, that's not how minds work, right? Like, if your mind's a blank, you must be meditating at the level that shit is.
Yes, that's a good point, Charlie. If your mind's blank, you're that calm.
He
and
will
everything else
describe-
is zoned out, so you can be right here in the present, nothing from the past nor the future. You can't be in the future thinking about it, and you can't be ruminating in the past. You have to have nothing but right here, right now. Wow. I mean, imagine even for a few minutes to get to that feels like.
Is Fariza here? Can you unmute if you're here? You put in this thing about how to foster
An environment, a safe space.
I don't know if you're still here. Unmute. Love to hear from some of you, like what's going through your head? Like your, because remember, I like I started using this internally, when people are all quiet and not saying a lot. The most lethal thing in relationship is contempt.
He doesn't have a headset on, so there'll be feedback, but
Um,
if there's any more you want to put into the chat in terms of what you're trying to get at, I mean, in terms of creating a safe space, and Mackie, I like what he was saying, which is it does take two, but as an individual, you have to get good at, so Mackie right before was saying you have to get, as an individual, get good at, speaking
But
and so,
actually, what's fascinating, what actually maybe Mackie's touching on,
Mhm.
and Teresa, if I say her name
Mhm.
wrong, sorry,
Mhm.
saying too. We react so fast that oftentimes what we have at work or what we have in places is too much of the heavy stuff.
Mhm.
The stuff that really matters. It's like, oof, it's lethal now taking the wrong step. It's like landmines everywhere, and navigate that correctly. We need to practice more of the stuff on the not important stuff,
Mhm.
which is why I said, like, who does this? What does a wrong squat look like? What does this look like? What does, like,
Yeah.
just like kind of,
Yeah.
like,
I
I don't
remember.
want you to argue about the right
I'll
way
give
to
you an
brush your
example.
teeth in the wrong way.
I
right?
remember getting some very truthful feedback from Charlie probably 5-6 years ago, whatever it was, in our spin class. And I was so frustrated that, okay, sorry, just being vulnerable for you.
Thank you.
Charlie on this side, Tom on this side doing spin class, and they have a thing called the tap back, where you're supposed to put your butt back, not arms down. And when everybody's in unison and the two people next to you are going like this, but we're all going back, it's like an ab butt thing, not an arm thing. After like a few months, I literally just like, you guys are doing this so wrong. It's driving me crazy. Like, and you're not getting better. It was driving me nuts, right? So I'm trying to teach Charlie, and Tom's like, well, show me too then, right? Like what? So I'm trying to explain it. I'm trying to get them to do it right. And finally Charlie just flips out. He's like, you're the worst teacher. Like you're the worst teacher. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like what? He's like, you're getting so frustrated, and you're like, I had like zero patience for it, which is not, I thought wasn't me, and in other areas I feel like so it just kind of caught me off guard, but it's spin class. Who cares, right? But it taught me a lot about me. So now I think about that a lot. It was a while back, but I think about how when I'm good at something, I have very little patience with people who aren't. But most things in my life where I feel like I'm a student of, I expect other people to be patient with me,
Mhm.
to teach me to have empathy for how I don't understand and why I can't. So, I mean, it came from a spin class. I mean, I know we can't do that over Zoom, but it's stuff that doesn't really matter, right? That doesn't matter, but it really,
I have a good one.
it was easier for you to tell me I suck.
I have a
than
good
in
one.
the
I have a
work.
good one for everyone.
Oh.
Isn't it called a body roll?
Oh God, body
Is that
rolls
what-
are like impossible.
That's learn the body.
Learn
roll.
to do it, but I still can't.
Like with
Can I try?
whoever.
Show them
What?
your body roll.
I'm not so good at this. So I've been told
I'm
you're
not
supposed to
even good at
pretend that you have a ponytail and someone's yanking your ponytail, right? And then you're supposed to roll. I really suck at this. right?
Dana's laughing. I can
Yank
see
your
Shiv is
ponytail and
laughing.
roll, right?
Oh my God.
Now,
Oh,
when
go
Megan was
Charlie.
telling me-
Tiffany's go Charlie.
No.
Terry's clapping for you. I love it.
Here's it. Megan
No.
teaching me was
No.
like, I was trying to tell
No.
him, I'm not like Brookie and Gumby.
You're
My
supposed
body.
to go this way, but you're supposed, it's hard to do. It's like one of the hardest things to do.
And the words I utter is, okay, yank my ponytail, which I don't even know what that ever feels like because I never had one. Yank my ponytail, go through. But what I learned that Megan did share is what you do with your abs is actually a huge part of it. At least that's my.
Is that what
little-
you remembered?
And
Are you
and
saying I was a
she
good teacher?
never. No, not from
Oh,
you. I learned it
oh.
from other people.
Oh, it wasn't me. What?
But-
What?
Try this. It's like, when you see dancers do it, they literally
It
look
looks
like
so
they have no
easy.
bones, right?
No, it's
They
so
look like
hard to do.
snakes.
You're supposed to.
I still can't
It's like
do it well. And
impossible to do.
And once you do it well, you can add your hand. So it's like, I think it's supposed to be guns, but I don't know. Quite know what it is.
Yeah,
I
you
think
do
it's
like a
cool.
fan with your fingers.
Yeah, I know. It's
Charlie
like-
does like a.
Try
Anyways,
that
try
and critique the hell out of each other, right? Don't do the, oh wow, great job, because that's the low
Oh,
calorie.
bend and snap. There is a bend and snap, Chris Kelly. So 2:00 Eastern Standard Time.
Bend and snap.
Today, 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be the backup dancers with the next jumpers here for the 2:00 305 fitness class. If you want to see Charlie do a bend and snap
I don't
or a
know.
body roll, bend and snap. It's from the movie Elle Woods, the
Okay.
movie, but they do it 305, but they do that. You go
Oh.
down and like you come up.
Oh yeah, no, it's like I look like I dropped the cane and I pick it up off the ground, and then I'm like, is everyone still here? So like
No, you wait till you see us. You're gonna see specimens. If you want to laugh or be really impressed, or maybe a combination, come to the live class at 2:00.
Live class, by the way, is a lot harder than video, is what I realized.
It is at least 10 times harder than doing it over Zoom, because for some reason, in-person pressure.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I mean, he was
There's a
gagging.
ma-
We tried it last week. He was gagging. We've been doing this for years. Gagging. It was just
Like,
like,
I really
it
thought
was- it
I was gonna
was-
throw
it
out my
was-
lunch, and it was like,
it was bad.
and the only thoughts I had in my head, wait.
Simon
Richard,
has called him slut drop. Jeez, well, I didn't know. Well, this class is supposed to be,
Well,
they call it
that-
making
See-
making
I don't even
sweat
see-
sexy. So it's a
yes.
bit of a, hey, we're
Slut
gonna,
drop.
we,
But, like, see,
a
I-
slut
No, but
drop.
see, I need my own analogy how to do that. So I think about, I drop something on the ground, I pick it up, and then I'm like, is everyone still here? It's kind of the narrative that went through my head, but this stuff is, like, this stuff is foreign to me, so it's hard. But my point is this, like, I think of communication.
Yes.
Don't start with, let's start on this super tough topic and see how we do in our relationship.
Yes.
Like, pick the thing that kind of you can make fun of each other on, and yet go at it as if it's the most important thing in the world,
Mm.
right? You should see Megan and I tend to argue on a lot of stuff just because we're very competitive.
Mhm.
Like when the day I thought I was actually better at the body roll than Megan, which
Oh
of
my
course,
God.
and I
Courtney
mean,
wants to do pole dancing. That's a whole different level. We used to have the most famous fitness pole dancing instructor. She was a
Yes.
yoga instructor. She used to date A-Rod. There's like a whole
okay,
thing.
she
She
won
was
number one out of
amazing.
10,000
number
people.
one fitness pole. Never tried it. We're not gonna do that. We are in a
Maybe,
You learned your lesson from that.
Oh,
We're
sorry,
not doing
sorry.
that shit.
no, actually.
That was
no,
before I was
no,
co-CEO
There's
of
a
this
very
company.
ugly story in that one.
That,
was my
we're
fault.
not gonna share that right
That was
now.
a very bad one.
That was before I was a co-CEO. There's a reason to have two, right? There's a reason to have two,
Oh.
right? You don't need to
Oh,
be able to
wait.
figure out everything by yourself.
So how about this? Laura wants to pull up our dance clip. Do you have it, Laura?
Oh, go ahead.
No.
I can try to pull it up if needed. Well, so we do poses. So posing,
Okay, so please don't make fun of people who are still learning and improving.
have some
But
empathy for those
um,
who are learning.
so last week's class we did in person, of which the first half, I think I literally thought to myself, Marines push through this stuff. I'm not a Marine, but I was like, I will push through the gagging. Second half, I was totally fine.
Yeah,
But the first half, it was
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
I thought I was gonna have a reset for my lunch and have second lunch, but
And
it
then
didn't happen.
in our protocol, our partner protocol, we eat chili.
Oh,
It was
it's just
not a good idea
not
before
so
the
smart
dance.
plan.
Yes, Erica, that's the face I would, yes, it was not good. To eat a little earlier. And class is at 2 today. You
Oh.
guys have to go to Mackie's class, by the way, at 1:00.
Oh,
Mackie
yes.
is gonna teach. We'll show you this video, but Mackie's gonna talk about something very cool. He's gonna talk about why him, like why he's our top student, why we're working so closely with Mackie. He's here in person today in our office. He's gonna talk about this. So we can get back to that in a second. Laura,
Yeah.
do you have the video? Do you
Yeah,
want to
so
show
hip
it?
extension. So 1:00 with Mackie, if you
Let's
can.
show you the video and then we'll tell you what he's gonna do. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I want it. The drama I'm living. 4, 3, 2, pose
Yes?
Bet you wanna know how I
it. You
let
see
go
my
down.
floor work right now?
Damn,
You see
I
this
bet
floor
you
work? Come get it. 4, yes, thank you. 3,
I know what I
2,
cheat on the
run it out. Come on, Charlie's Angels. I love it.
Here we are, guys. And they're like not impressed. Shayla's like, yes, floor work. Yes, we did floor work. Anyway, you're laughing, but if you come do it, be a little vulnerable, put your video on. We have to do it in front of all of you. So at least you can do is put your video on.
This is true. And literally go.
Thank
go-
you. It's YouTube worthy, Katie. Thank you.
And you know the one thing I have learned
We have
sort of
injured
through Zoom,
ourselves. Mhm.
you do have to go a little extra. Like
Yeah.
like when you tell the story, you got to add extra. When you do your
Yeah.
pose, you got to go extra. When you if you don't add the extra, it's too easy to do the opposite, which is just be more suppressed. You know, like make your hand motions bigger, like, you know, like sound louder, like you have to go extra. There's a dance
Mhm.
instructor in this 305 group. His name is Sam. We like love him to
Ah,
death.
Sam.
We have to find him again. We just call them the extraness, because despite us feeling so isolated in Zoom, in the thing, I mean, we just hired him just as an extra dancer. I don't know if years ago, if you guys remember the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, but this band, they had this dance. There was a one part of the band, and this person just danced silly, and I was like, wow,
That
like, I
was his
want that job,
Huh.
right? Like, didn't have to have musical skills, didn't have to have really dancing skills or playing instruments, nothing, singing, just danced like extraness. So the point I think is important is be the extraness.
Be the extra.
know? And I think you might draw out more extraness out of somebody else. And yes, it'll be tiring at the start,
Mm-hmm.
but then you'll talk about like poses on dancing. Imagine like going and saying, okay, let's see you do your pose, Nicole. Nicole, give us a pose right now.
Yeah, come on, Nicole. You Mitch.
Oh,
Okay. Oh,
No,
come
no,
on.
come on. more
Come
than that.
on,
Laura,
stand up.
spotlight Nicole.
And look at
Stand up.
Nicole's like, what?
Laura, spotlight
Hey,
Nicole.
you've done Mitchell's class before.
Yes.
You're like
Nicole.
a dancer. What the fuck
Nicole.
did she say?
5 to 6 poses, go. Oh, yes.
Five or
She needs
six
music.
poses.
No, she can do it. She can do it. All right, let's see it. Okay, all right.
You're so cute. I love
Okay,
Nicole.
no, that was 3. That was 3, which you've
Two
discounted.
more.
Two more at least.
Two
Nicole,
more.
2
Two
more.
more.
Okay,
Oh,
okay,
now
okay.
we're getting
You
it.
So after 2 is 1 more.
I love it.
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Get it. And she's like, no. She's like, no. No. she's
That hair thing is not a pose.
not.
Um,
She's wearing her Air Force jacket.
okay,
So cute.
so.
Yeah.
Now let's critique
Go
it.
like this.
I'm teasing. I'm
No,
teasing.
no, we-
Oh, there we go.
See, we
There
literally
we
have
go.
to learn them. Like
There we
it's so stressful because it's just pose, pose.
Yes.
You're like, what pose? What?
You can stop spotlighting.
Poor
Nicole,
Nicole.
But
We appreciate you.
and I've
humoring
learned
us.
things like on poses, you need to do what they call duck lips, which I didn't know what duck lips were because I was like, do ducks actually have lips? It's
And I
simply
guess
just
the
to.
beak is kind of looks like a right.
I've
But
seen
Charlie
ducks.
does
I
do it.
never-
Go
I
ahead, show
never-
them your
I never
duck
thought
lips.
of why do
I don't know because you're good at it. I don't
Okay.
have to do that. I'm good enough. I don't need to. I don't
Yes.
need to like have a duck lip.
Oh, so yeah, can you put us back in the spotlight, Laura? So-
Lindsay
so-
looks horrified. Simon Sparks biting his nails. Is like, are these guys off the rocker today? This is what happens.
Oh, we had a lot of wine, but I mean, I'm telling you, there's so much crazy cool stuff. It's crazy the people that we started to bring back in person that we're interacting with. I mean, the volume of insights, lessons, discussion is literally 100-fold
Yeah.
that's occurring. I mean, sure, we talked to over Zoom,
Yeah.
like not the same conversation that happened when you came in person.
Mhm.
And so we're going to do our best to bring to you as much of that as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just literally what's happening in a week is a lot. But yeah, tell them what the Mackie.
Oh yeah, so Mackie, yeah, I'm assuming Mackie's still here. At 1 o'clock, if you guys can, what time is it right now? Soon, or 40 minutes. Mackie's gonna teach a class. I think he has one of his top coaches with him too. They're gonna talk about why we've chosen Mackie, why he became our social capitalist, the first one, why we made him our first external, partner that we brought into Next Jump. And I think this notion of, when you look back and you think about it, well, it felt easy. This is what I do. We're trying to help Mackie recount our first interactions with him years ago. It kind of led to a conversation Charlie and I had about how I became the co-CEO of Next Jump and how hard it was in the beginning and how it's still hard, and just how necessary it is to kind of look back on history and how you got to where you are. There's a lot of lessons in there. So he was going to share that with you guys. Can ask
And
questions.
most things,
and
most great things in life, it's never easy.
There's
When
a
you-
lot of forks in decision making.
When you go back to the forks you took, the right ones were the harder ones to take.
Yeah.
The easy forks, in hindsight, you might remember it as easy. It's almost like, I find people conversations saying, oh, I
Yeah.
missed the beginning of COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
do you know how crazy that is if you think about it? I missed the beginning of COVID where life felt sort of easier than now. We forgot what the beginning of COVID was like. I mean, our hands were cracking from the overuse of hand sanitizer, and we couldn't even find hand sanitizer. Like it was like we were reading the news as if there'd be like a tidbit of how to survive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
How to make your own sanitizer.
yeah, we can remember it like
Yeah.
as if it's like it was okay, right? Better than now.
Yeah.
And it's not. And this is where our memories fail us. And so often, so we were challenging Mackie to also go back. The choices were not so easy. Just like Megan said, it feels like becoming co-CEO is easy. I was like, oh no, you're remembering it very wrong.
I never said it was easy, but I feel like you forget a lot of the hurdles, a lot of the forks, a lot of the decisions that you have to make that are tough ones. You literally just forget. It's crazy.
This guy, Simon Littler, when he comes and speaks, he shared part of this healing process. I mean, this like white guy who literally hanged, like at gunpoint and killed someone. And what the 3 black guys, the way they probed him and questioned him to
Yeah.
make him relive the experience
Yeah.
and feel the fire, even a higher level than he did in the past, which led to the healing. Like I have to have Simon tell you the story.
Yeah.
There's a part of the difficulty in the past is important for us to remember. it will give us the perspective of actually us navigating the difficulty today. You know how it feels like the problems in our life right now can feel like the heaviest.
Yeah.
Yet the reality is we have faced really tough stuff before and we did okay. And sometimes we did really well, but we have to remember how difficult it was. And when we narrate the story back to ourselves, to other people, we kind of, I don't know, it wasn't that bad. It was pretty easy. It was kind of like, no, it never was. And so, and it's an important part
Well,
of,
it can feel like you just got lucky, right? Like a lot of people just look at, oh, must have just got lucky, but it's like, it's never, I mean, I'm sure there are cases
no, but
like
but
that.
can I tell you what lucky suggests? That you're
Mhm.
not still understanding the forks.
Yeah, right.
These forks,
Right.
we all face forks in the road and thousands of forks and everything.
Yeah.
Right. And so the fact that you pick this fork versus that, at that point of picking, it's not an easy choice.
Yeah.
Right. And there are many forks you pick that take tremendous amount of courage, that take tremendous risk. Right. And we take it, you know, that kind where you do it and then you want to just tell everyone, I'm sorry, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like you want to apologize before you even know what happens. Right. We do that all the time everywhere. Right. That whole kind of like, I want to explain myself that, oh, no, I just kind of didn't know what I was doing, as opposed to giving it the time to see what shows up. And but yeah, if you can, I think it'd be cool to hear from Mackie, and he's going to try to take, he's been our top student coming out of leadership and practice, all the coaching and mentoring. So he's taking his time 1 o'clock consistently to try to share how he's applied lessons and then give you another space to go and put the stuff into practice and share his lessons, share each other's. You have the small groups to do it as well. And you get to practice your body rolls and then critique the hell out of it. And so at some points, right, as you start to come to premium COA, we will add body rolls and suddenly they'll be like, whoa, this group of 100, just like.
I really feel it's probably the hardest thing to do in dancing.
It still just feels very unnatural.
You have to be flexible, all that.
So-
You should see Mackie trying to teach me how to shoot a basketball yesterday. It's like, oh my God, am I awful at it? Like, I didn't know your arm was supposed to be straight. I'm like trying to do something else. It's like, nah, you can't even talk about that, Megan, until you can just get your arms straight. Like, what? You know, it's just not easy. It's not easy. Body rolls, basketball. Okay, you guys.
All right. So
Oh yeah, to enter the room, you have to have a body roll. Yep, it's your ticket. Yes.
yeah, stretch first. It might, that
Yeah, I
makes no
think I actually
difference for
hurt
some of
myself
us.
trying to show you what we were talking. I hurt my lower back. But you know, what? All the pain goes away when you just have to sweat through it at 2 o'clock. If you want to join us, you guys, let's have some fun together.
Okay.
You know, you can laugh at us.
And if you're interested in trying to come to the beta group next week, shoot us a
Yeah.
note or send somebody at Next Trump You Know a note. We'll bubble it up. If not, September 30th, we'll open it up and see what happens. And then we've got some really cool stuff to keep adding in there. So the point is, with all the isolation and all the stuff,
Yeah.
Thursday's kind of been, I think, a big part of everyone's structure, right? Like, you know, this is always here, and the structure of meeting other people. This class is about leadership, but people have different, whether it's sleep classes or fitness classes or, you know, children stuff. Like, our goal was to provide structure when the whole thing broke apart for us in the world. And so we're gonna add the physical structure as well. And yes, if you're not in those cities, we'll think of how to do pop-up, but we're gonna try the in-person. We're in 3 major cities, so
We hope to get all of you in here at some point, right? I mean, just each one of you would love to meet
Yeah.
you guys in person. And Lindsay's saying you guys feel my butt. We're her happy place. That's like such a nice, thanks for sharing that. No, it's awesome. We've created a happy place. Tough and happy, tough love, all good
Tough,
place.
happy,
Learning. It's like,
mess-
it's learning, messy.
messy,
It's just
misfit.
real, just real,
yes.
just real.
And I've just probably given Rachel in our company content to mock me in future.
Dance
We do these
classes?
dance battles and then they replay clips to like mock, like trash talk. So like, I'm like the poster boy of the trash talking usually, because they have a lot of.
My
really bad
God,
jokes.
Chris, you work Saturdays so you can take Thursday off because this is your tough love learning?
Wow,
Wow. Wow.
that's cool.
Wow, Chris. That is
That's
just
a-
badass.
that's a
That is
huge,
just
that's
badass.
a huge compliment. I
That's just, that's,
appreciate
yes,
that.
yeah, we do. That's, wow.
And so
Wow.
we will have to drink even virtually again, if not in person, but yes, like really good stuff coming. So, all right.
All right, you guys.